Guys, over the weekend, there was a Saturday Night Live skit that went viral for all the wrong reasons. It got a lot of backlash because it was a skit addressing the recent, what was this?
There's a congressional hearing where Elise Stefanik was cross-examining the heads of all of these universities, including Harvard and MIT. So Claudine Gay specifically, and she was asking them about their code of conduct on campus and whether hate speech against Jewish students is permitted by other students. And SNL decided that they were going to make an extremely unfunny skit parodying the congressional hearing.
It wasn't offensive. It was just aggressively unfunny.
I don't think that this skit is anti-Semitic by
any
stretch of the imagination. It's just unfunny like everything else that SNL does these days. So this was their cold open, and they're getting a lot of backlash for it. I just don't see any backlash besides calling it cringe. I see some replies here say, this is the most cringe skit ever. This is what happens when comedy is replaced by radical political bias. Another said, your audience didn't even laugh because this was so remarkably tone deaf.
What's funny about the laughter in the audience, what it felt like is like the subject matter was so heavy that they were actually holding their breath. And
it makes people uncomfortable.
The little laughter there was felt like it escaped them almost inadvertently because they were uncomfortable.
Right.
Like it didn't seem
I also found it confusing just given that Lorne Michaels is Jewish, so I would assume that SNL would not have a pro-Palestinian slant in their jokes.
Okay, here's a comment from Congressman Greg Murphy. Says nothing short of a full-fledged apology from entire staff of SNL is required. Attacking Rep Stefanik instead of the anti-Semitism progressive president's ring of their own anti-Semitism. Typical damn liberal hypocrisy. I don't think they should apologize. I think you swung, you missed, move on.
I mean, we talked about Matt Rife making a joke that was about domestic violence. Even though we didn't find his joke funny, we didn't find it offensive either, and we certainly wouldn't be demanding that Matt Rife issue an apology for it. And similarly, we just talked about Ricky Gervais's new special where he makes jokes about kids with terminal cancer. Even if I didn't personally watch that clip and laugh out loud, I still think, you know, people who got mad at it shouldn't be allowed to set the rules for what he is allowed to say or joke about. It's not really about whether the skit was funny. It's just about their right to do unfunny jokes. I mean, that is covered under free speech, unfortunately. Being unfunny
also, I would think
covered under the First Amendment.
As little as I think of them, I would think even less of them if they apologized. I would.
Yeah, that's true. It would be worse.
SNL doesn't know what to do. They're very Jewish. They're in New York, a city rife with anti-Semitic violence, but they can't bring themselves to acknowledge that the left has turned against Jews. They can't get out of their partisan rut. It really is what you could tell from this skit, right, is that they didn't know who to blame, so they blamed Republicans.
Yeah, it's a geopolitical conflict that they can't comprehend, so they're going to look at American politicians, and if there's a Republican Trump supporter saying a certain thing, they have to mock it. Yep. They don't really know what any of it means.
Again, if somebody's made, like, it would be like when people say, like, do Americans get mad when you make 9/11 jokes? Like, if they do, I don't think that that's something you get mad at either. I say humor is humor, and if you don't like it, you move on. That's the whole point. Humor has to exist.
I did watch the actual cross-examination with Elise Stefanik and Claudine Gay, and I think that was funny enough on its own. Yeah. I don't think it needed to be parodied by SNL or anyone. And another interesting detail of this is that the actress who, on the SNL cast, who was supposed to play Elise Stefanik in this bit, backed out of it at the last minute because
she read the room and realized it wasn't funny.
She read the room, she read the script and realized that it was incredibly unfunny. So an inside source told the New York Post that Cecily Strong, the original actress, was uncomfortable with the sketch. Another added, there were a variety of reasons, and last minute, Cecily Strong pulled out of the cold open.
She gets points for having an awesome name, though.
Cecily Strong.
Cecily Strong is
a pretty cool name. And then also they got a statement from Alex Degrasse, who is Elise Stefanik's senior advisor. He said Elise did not watch the bit. However, her office was flooded with messages from thousands of Americans across the political spectrum, Democrats and Republicans, who were appalled and disgusted by the anti-Semitic trash spewed by unfunny, morally bankrupt comedians.
Here comes the moral policing again.
Yeah, SNL made history with the worst cold open ever because everyone knows there's absolutely no humor in the vile answers from the university presidents regarding their failure to condemn calls for the genocide of the Jewish people. It just makes you sound like the left.
Yeah.
Makes you sound like a moral grandstander and a crybaby. It's not a good look.
So I say just make fun of it online. If you didn't like it, don't call for it to be censored. Make fun of it online. Don't ask for an apology. Make fun of it online. If it's bad, you can vote that way, right? Just mock it. That's how you do that. So
I have a question. Which one is worse? Adam Driver's joke about how wokeness killed Han Solo, or the SNL anti-Semitism skit?
This is worse. This is worse. Mike, this other person says, this isn't humor. It's mockery of a dire issue. Again, Americans still make fun of 9/11.
Mockery of a dire issue is my bread and butter.
Yes.
I love mocking dire issues.
SNL lost its way many decades ago and hasn't been funny since. SNL should have faded away years ago, but didn't, so here we are, now watching this highly anti-Semitic crap. Maybe the FCC should investigate this anti-Semitism investigation.
The FCC should investigate SNL because they made fun of a congressional hearing.
Yes.
Did I hear that correctly?
That's what he's saying that they should do.
Like, everyone just needs to get their panties out of the bunch that they are in.
And if SNL does things right, they're winning here because they're getting tons of attention to it. It's not like SNL is so beloved now that this attention isn't good for them. It still puts more eyeballs on them than they get in a long time.
Right.
Every time Dave Chappelle does a bit for them, it gets a bunch of bad publicity because he comes on every couple of years but then they get really, really good traction because it actually speaks to somebody. They just did the one with Timothy Chalamet, the Hamas the band. It's Hamas. And that got them more traction than they've seen in any time recently because nobody cares about
They need
Saturday Night
negative
Live.
attention to stay relevant.
Because good attention isn't going to happen from Saturday Night Live.
Honestly, the weirder part of them even making this skit, writing it, casting it, and putting it out there, is that I don't think most people pay that close attention to congressional hearings that they would even know what they're watching.
Yeah.
Like, what are they? They don't have the context for jokes about something so niche and irrelevant to most people's lives. This is for a mass audience watching late night television.
Yeah.
That's puzzling to me.
Back in the day, Saturday Night Live and a lot of these publications were very good at mocking both sides in a more fair
That's clearly
concept.
A thing of the past.
But it says, this is so weird and unfunny. It begs the question, was SNL ordered to do this cold open to create some cover for anti-Semitic progressives? I'm serious. No one who wrote this or performed this can even pretend it's funny. It feels like forced propaganda, so who made them do it? Look, sometimes you just miss the mark. Is it possible that
for SNL it's every time?
It's most of the time they just miss the mark. And I actually wonder what that's like for these actors who it's kind of like when we do this show, right? Like not every show is going to be a home run. Right? Everyone's, you're going to get shows that don't go as well as others. You tend to be on the ball just about every episode. I go up and down and up and down. Part of the job, right? That you're not going to hit a home run every single time you do it. So I wonder how these actors feel because they have to be professional. They still have to commit to the bit every time they do something like this.
Unless you're Cecily Strong. Yeah. You can back out of the bit.
Right? So this other person says, SNL is no longer funny. The most recent skit mocking Congressman Stefanik was disgraceful. SNL must support the rights of Jewish students not being enforced. SNL is part of the anti-Semitic cabal. Again, SNL
I don't feel bad for anyone who goes to Harvard University.
SNL makes bad comedy. I don't know what the rest of this has to do with anything. I don't know if they are required to support anything other than themselves making shitty comedy that nobody watches anymore.
On all sides, it's just cringe on all sides. Yeah. I don't think that I fall into any camp on this. It was unfunny, but it wasn't really offensive either.
Yep. And
you forgot the funny like usual.
They usually do when it comes to Saturday Night Live. What I would like to see them do is, I wonder if they could do like, you know how some people do like the cleanse? So this YouTuber, or I'm sorry, this personality, they like the Dadvocate, who does a lot of men's rights and marriage type advice on Instagram. Very wholesome page for the most part. Said she's not doing alcohol all next year. She's not an alcoholic. She's just going to do a year without alcohol. I would like to see Saturday Night Live do a year without political content. Like, if you put some restrictions on yourself about what you could cover, you might actually find yourself forced by necessity to find things that are actually funny to talk about, because you don't get to go for the low-hanging fruit. You can't just rely on the fodder that everyone's talking about. It would be an interesting thing. It would also kind of help with the idea of escapism, right? Like, not everybody wants to watch this stuff for current events issues.
Well, escapism is seen as a moral fault now.
Yes, it is.
Seeking to escape from these dire issues that are constantly in the news cycle, or the fact that people are dying across the world, that's seen as a moral failing on your part. If you want any moment of your day to distract you from all of the tragedy and heartache in the world, you're a bad person. So you should actually be a 24/7 activist. You should be signing petitions all day long, donating to refugee nonprofits, and tweeting at Elon Musk all day long, or else you are a bad person. So there's really no purpose to entertainment anymore.
Remember, ladies and gentlemen, it's not enough to just not be an activist. You must be actively anti-activist.
That we can agree upon.
It's your moral imperative to make fun of activists at every chance you can. You have to be an activist for not being an activist. I implore you. Yeah, it's ridiculous, and I don't think things are going to really change for Saturday Night Live. This will disappear in the next couple of weeks, I think.
Yeah, and regardless of anything, I feel zero sympathy for any person who goes to Harvard University, regardless of which side they support in geopolitical conflict. Their professors told them to plant their flag somewhere, and I don't think any of them genuinely care.
It was really interesting last night talking with, so we had this guest on named Rob Montz, who's he's like a documentary filmmaker, and he makes a lot of great documentaries. I think it's Good Kid Productions. And he makes a lot of these like really, really high quality documentaries about essentially the rot that's going on in academia. And he went to town talking about the lack of qualifications for the Harvard dean and all of this, the president of Harvard and all of this stuff. And he was really, really intelligent. He was really, really eloquent. You guys, if you have time later, you might want to go check that out. He was like, basically didn't even interview him. Colonel Kurtz basically gave him a few questions, and he just went to town for like 20 or 30 minutes and really, really kind of opened a lot of doors to explain why so much of this is going on and why those hearings were so egregious. And that was before they found out that she's not losing her job at Harvard. She will be staying. They're not going to fire her. And he goes into a lot of other things. So it's really, really great. I think you guys should go check that out. It might put all of this into a little bit more perspective. Thanks for watching. Listen to full episodes of Pop Culture Crisis on Spotify.
Keep up with us on social media, and make sure you subscribe and ring that bell so you never miss the show. Bye, guys.